Well, welcome everybody to our July episode of our Customer Roundtable here at VisualSP. Our topic for today revolves around LMS systems, learning management systems. And our CEO, Asif Ramani, has done some writing on this recently. He's been working with, in particular, one LMS system, looking at how a platform like VisualSP is actually symbiotic with an LMS, and looking at how the better together story works. So that's kind of our topic today, because with many of our customers, we find this is true. They have both. They have us and an LMS of one kind. We were just having an informal chat a minute ago about which ones different places are using. But that's our topic for today. So a lot of times we start with just a few quotes to get our head in the right space for the conversation. I like this one from Ben Franklin. The best return on your money, pour your purse into your head. Right? It says a lot there, and that's why organizations so often do invest in e-learning, especially now with the remote workforce, right? You know, e-learning is even more important than it was before with it. So VisualSP falls under that, but so does an LMS system. Anybody using something called an LXP, Learning Experience Platform? Sometimes the terms are used interchangeably. They're a little different thing, but I'm just curious if anybody that's with us today is familiar with LXP or uses one. It kind of seems that an LXP is less structured. It's more based on the experience of the student coming to learn than on the administrators trying to structure and assign and require training. So it's a little different focus for the system. This is a good one too. I thought it's from a more modern person more modern than Ben Franklin, right? But someone in the e-learning field. Think about what your learners need to do with that information after the course is finished and design around that. That's true not just in the content, but in the system, right? You know, helping people to uncover that information. And we're going back a little older than Ben Franklin for this one. For the things we have to learn before we can do them, we actually learn by doing them, right? Isn't that the case? Right? Maybe even more in technology than it was back then at the time, right? It's so many times it's actually by doing something. So the more we can incorporate the learning, get it as close as we can to the task, the more effective it is. And lastly, need to bring the learning to the people instead of the people to the learning. These were all good principles to talk about when we're talking about learning, whether it is an LMS or VisualSP, either way. Any thoughts from you guys on any of these quotes? Anything stand out to you?
The last one especially is something that I've been talking about also, that you have to take the learning to the learner instead of the other way around. The other way around just does not work. And I mean, it works, but there's a lot of motivation, a lot of effort needed, especially in these days, to make that happen.
So for me, it's the Aristotle one, that we learn by doing them and kind of incorporating, I'm definitely very much a hands-on learner. So I need kind of help while I'm figuring it out, but at the same time, I don't learn super well just going through like training courses. Like I have to put things into action and do them before I really remember. So kind of bringing learning to people is more helpful to me personally. And probably, I mean, obviously a lot of people, but.
Yeah, I'm a hands-on learner too.
There's also a thing out there that talks about how you learn and remember things better the more senses that you're using. So if you are actually doing something, I think that's another reason, you're just so much more engaged in the activity.
Anyway. The more holes in my head that are used to get the idea in, the fewer it can fall back out. That's right.
Correct.
Love it.
Perfect.
So yeah, good. I thought these are good principles for us. And you think about it, if you were looking at an LMS system and a digital adoption platform like ours, side by side, if we're looking at in the Venn diagram, there is an overlap between them, but there's a lot that's outside of it on either side, right? There are things about an LMS that are kind of killer features to it, that are the reason why organizations have become so reliant on them over time. That ability to group resources together, individual things into learning paths or courses, something that guides a learning experience for people. The idea of assigning things to specific students so they have a checklist of things they must complete, or even doing it to audiences, right? It's not individual users, but every one of a certain class of people in your organization needs to do this. Student transcripts, those kind of things, those kind of structured, curated, managed learning experiences, LMSs really shine for those types of things. The classic example over my experience in the corporate world is compliance training. Okay? Every year there's the annual compliance training that happens, and that's usually in an LMS because these things help, right? There's several things that need to be done. They need to assign it, make sure it gets completed, those transcripts to verify those things. It's a classic use case for an LMS. Of course, we do compliance things in digital adoption as well, but it's kind of a classic use case, LMS. Those things that are bigger, more structured learning, takes more time for the student to get through. Dedicated destination is helpful for those completion deadlines. Those kind of things are good reasons for that. Go ahead, Asif.
No, I was just agreeing.
Okay.
Just agreeing.
But there are some challenges in LMSs too, right? There are things that don't go as smoothly with an LMS. I know, Asif, you've done quite a bit of writing on this recently. Any particular thing you'd like to say to get us started there?
Things that don't go well, you said?
Yeah, challenges or opportunities to improve on an LMS. Right?
Yeah.
That's...
Well, that's exactly what I'll be talking about, right? It's more of a push mechanism than a pull for most people. You push them to go, and this happens in my own household. My wife tells me all the time, this is like, oh, I have to take this training. I have to do this thing. And I got my regular work to do also. So a lot of that push is happening. If you've been following what Microsoft has been saying, even as recently as today, there's Microsoft Inspire going on right now for partners. They're all talking about how do you create a culture for learning. It's so much easier to say than actually do that. People will only do it if they understand what's in it for them. And that has to be super clear. So my hope is that by showing some of the demonstrations that I'll do today to make things go from just verbal and hypothetical to actual.
Uh-oh. We lost you, Asif.
Can't hear me?
Oh, there you're back. It's got stuck for a moment.
Oh, I was just saying that I'm a very visual guy in nature myself. So we'll translate some of those topics into actual, what does it look like? What is the pain point? What does it look like?
Yeah, we're looking forward to that. I think that's always the best way to get these things across. Just by way of intro, maybe it kind of seems like the challenges with a dedicated learning destination like an LMS or an LXP kind of fall into three umbrella categories in my mind, at least. Right, the visibility, right? It's because it's in a separate system somewhere else. People don't see it, although they're maybe not fully aware of the training that's available. The classic example of that is the employee survey that happens every year, where invariably the users tell you they need more training, and what they're asking for training for, there's already training for. Right? That's a common challenge with them. Complexity is another, both complexity for the admins that have to set things up, but also for the users when they're going in and navigating an LMS. Many times they're a big platform. There's lots of things there. And I had an example recently that I had to go into with another organization that was using Moodle with it. Moodle's a fine platform, but boy, there was an awful lot of navigation and finding and trying to figure it out, even for somebody with a technical background to identify those things. And maybe the last is commitment, right? The student has to have some initiative or a mandated requirement that shows up on their performance review for them to go and pull this stuff up in a destination site. So let's jump to our demo before we talk too much about it. Our demo here is getting an LMS and a digital adoption platform to work together to increase employee productivity. So we'll go, what I have here in the link, both the QR code and the bit.ly link there are, it's an article that Asif wrote recently on LinkedIn. It was talking about this very topic. So it's a good reference. Thanks. Looks like we might have lost you again, Asif.
Yeah, he's kind of frozen there, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. Okay, well, while he's getting his connection back, from talking with him earlier, we put together that little mailing that went out to let you know the topic for this roundtable today. We can talk about kind of the 4 different methods that are a good starting place for this, kind of the principles with it. We kind of used retail metaphors for this stuff, right? The Home Depot method is you can do it, we can help kind of a thing. So it's helping the admins, the owners of the LMS, leverage the features and to build content in the LMS system itself, right? The LMS system itself might need contextual help to show up in there for the people that are configuring and using it. Asif had a good example we're using with LMS 365, which is kind of a Microsoft-centric LMS system that's out there in the cloud. But it was just that it was the vendor for LMS 365 found that a lot of customers were not following through and doing some of the configuration steps that they really needed to be successful. So Asif's got a good example we can show for that here in a minute. He makes it back in about walking an admin through some of this setup process it needs to do. Those of you that have done walkthroughs in our product for other things, the concept will be clear, but just the use case is interesting to look at, and what a powerful thing that can be. The second one, Home Depot was number 1, but the second one was the welcome to Walmart method. So, let's say the use case here is where a potential student, a user, has arrived in the LMS. Right? They've come here because an email told them they needed to, or because they wanted to come. They set aside an afternoon in their week to learn something. So when they arrive in the LMS, how do you give them some guidance and some interactive recommendations so that they know when they've gotten here where they should be going? Maybe you know that this is compliance week and everybody needs to go find this specific course. How do you advertise that? A VisualSP banner is a good idea for that. So you can do it, we can help, or the welcome to Walmart are the first 2. We also talked about a Costco metaphor. When you walk through Costco and the free samples are everywhere. Those are back, by the way. I don't know if you noticed that if you've been to Costco recently, but the samples are back. But the idea is proactively delivering tips to people from recommended courses. So maybe somebody is working in Salesforce, and you have a course in your LMS about how to use Salesforce the right way, how to turn opportunities into leads, or vice versa. Yeah, leads into opportunities. But what you can do is in Salesforce, you can give them a little tip, right, with a read more button that takes them to the bigger resource that's over there. So the free sample method is pretty powerful. And lastly, the vending machine method, right? Making it easy for somebody to come and get a snack from the LMS, right? Those common resources that people are going to look for when they're done with the course, making sure that those are available in the digital adoption platform, in VisualSP, so that they're at arm's reach. They don't have to leave the system to go find those for reference after. Looks like we have you back, Asif.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
I can, yeah. I was just walking through those 4 principles.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, believe it or not, our home internet went off right before I was about to start. So I'm on my cell phone tethering right now. Wow, this is
relatable.
Amazing. Yeah, that's the joys of working from home. Oh boy. All right, I'm not gonna turn my camera on. It's gonna be too much bandwidth. But as long as you can hear me, okay, I'll start sharing my screen too and talk through things. And hopefully there's enough bandwidth.
Perfect.
All righty, let's try this. I'm gonna steal the screen here, Eric.
Yeah, go right in.
Okay, so what I've done, first of all, can you see my screen?
Yes.
What I've done is I have a few slides and then mostly demos, which hopefully it works in this bandwidth, that I've made here. But to give you all a background, I have been speaking and writing and recording videos on blended learning concepts a lot. And blended learning, if you're not aware, is, well, just like it sounds like, you're blending different learning to attain the final solution, which is getting the information that you want to get to the learner's head. To put it simply, a lot of in-person classes have been shut down, and the online regular synchronous courses are not as successful these days. From what I hear, a lot of people saying you can't just translate what you were doing in person online. It just becomes really dry. But you do have to do some of that. Then there's webinars, you do that as well, orientation events. Then there's the learning management systems, which is what I'm going to be talking about right now. And then there's digital adoption platforms like VisualSP. So all of you have VisualSP, so you can relate to what I'll be talking about. But the idea here is that how does a digital adoption platform like VisualSP helps a learning management system and vice versa? How do they play together in such a way where the end result is that the user always has the information they need at their moment of need in context of their environment and within the flow of their work, right? That's what we're trying to achieve. So I have 4 specific scenarios, and I would love discussion from everybody that's here around these things as I go one by one. So I'm going to do one, we'll stop, talk about it, see what everybody has to say, and then we'll go forward. Here's a first pain point that I see a lot. A learning management system, no matter which one it is out there, someone mentioned Cornerstone, you have SAP, you have LMS 365, which I'll be showing today, Saba. There's so many different learning management systems. In fact, I went to a conference recently where there's 54 of them on the floor trying to show why they're different from their neighbor. And they're not as different. They're very similar to each other for the most part, to be honest. But they have the exact same challenges too. For example, you get a learning management system, and then you have these admins who are kind of afraid at times to go in and get started, to make their first course, or a new person comes on board and they have to make a course using the LMS, and they're afraid, and they're just waiting for the documentation to just be right and available, and they have enough time to be able to do it. What I'm going to show you is a walkthrough that can come up on the first time where a LMS admin goes to an LMS, guiding them, by hand, step by step, interactively, digitally, to show them exactly what to do to make their first course. Okay, so having said that, here's a typical screen. So as I was mentioning, LMS 365 is the one that I'm using. We're partnering with them as well. So that's why I have this demo environment here. And there's a bunch of courses. So what I'm showing here is going to be, let's say a new person comes on board and you want to get them acquainted how to make a course. So they come here for the first time, automatically this walkthrough starts up, the interactive guided walkthrough. And this is delivered through VisualSP, in this case, a digital adoption platform. Click Create Training. You click on Create Training, and then the next step over here is going to show them, all right, you got these 3 choices: e-learning, instructor-led, or training plan. Say, okay, got it. Next. Then it's going to guide them through a very specific scenario, so they get hands-on understanding of how to make this happen. In this case, they'll be making a training plan. So it's highlighted training plan is saying, go ahead and click on it. They click on it, it continues. I won't bore you with typing all the stuff in, so I'll just type in whatever. And then say, okay, next. Then it says click courses. So it's taking me once again, step by step, showing me exactly what needs to happen. Add courses, select the courses, click on save. And as I'm doing this thing, it's going forward, right? Telling me I can go to settings. Now here things are optional, so I can turn things on or off. I don't have to do that. Next. A few more steps here, 10 out of 13. So it's telling me there's a few more steps remaining, 3 more steps remaining. Enroll learners. Yeah, it takes out the hesitation when you're doing this thing from a person who's actually in charge of making this happen, because most people do hesitate when they're doing this for the first time, thinking, am I going to do this right? So, and then ending them over here saying, all right, You're ready to launch this course. So now they've gone through clicking and getting their hands dirty with the actual LMS, making this happen. Now, what I've shown, of course, is in the LMS 365 specifically, but any LMS could have a walkthrough like this that can come up either automatically, or it could be in the tab where they just click on creating a training plan or something like that, and the walkthrough starts up on demand. Or let's say there's a button or something right here saying start creating your training plan. So they click on the button, let's say right here, and that starts up that walkthrough on demand. Either way, getting them to that first step of starting their training creation, which once again has been a major hesitation from what I've seen from LMS administrators. So any thoughts around this? Does that relate?
I think that's a good example of one. It's one of those heavy tasks that is intimidating to people. I've never been the guy that's owned the LMS in any of the places I've worked, so it's not been my responsibility to do this. But what I've noticed is that it's typically a small number of people. It's a very small number of people that do that because it is such a big, heavy, complicated task. I was just curious how many here, sit in that seat themselves.
Yeah, if anybody has done that or know of other people who have gone through this hesitation or this whole process, would love to hear from your experience as well.
So I haven't been through it from an LMS perspective, but just from like solution development and having to put together training, the hardest part is getting started.
Yeah.
So yeah, that walkthrough is fantastic.
That's true, that you could take
confidence.
this, right, you could take this this scenario and transfer that to anything that you want to onboard people to remove that hesitation, to remove that fear that I might do something incorrectly. Because mostly people get into that paralysis because they're analyzing, paralysis analysis. That happens a lot. And I've seen that happen, the scenario that I just showed right now, that happen a lot, where people either get a prototype or a trial or have the actual system, and then it just sits there until someone is confident on what to do.
I love
and this
that
kind of
paralysis analysis.
Yeah. Alrighty. So if there are any comments on this thing, we can come back to it. Otherwise, I'll just go ahead and jump to the next scenario. Like I said, we have 4 of them. The other one, this is kind of like what Eric, you were saying before, where you go in to the LMS when there's compliance reason to do so, right? Once a year, you go there, you take the workplace harassment or the sexual harassment or the cybersecurity or whatever course that you're being pushed to take, but does not get used enough otherwise. So what I'm going to show in this particular scenario is, if you want to just put out one specific piece of content to the user within their interface. Now, that piece of content could be coming, in this case, from the LMS, but it's very, very relevant to the interface that they're looking at. So whether in their ServiceNow, Workday, Salesforce, Dynamics, SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams, whatever it is, they get the information in form of a video, tip sheet, artifact, whatever it is, and that is very specific to what they're doing. So they don't feel like they're being pushed something that they're not currently interested in, right? In my scenario, I'll be using this one, just the regular office.com. You're at office.com. Let's say this is your first time or 10th time or something, but you're still are not completely comfortable as to what you're looking at here. Now I'm going to play the scenario. In this case, a digital adoption platform like VisualSP is this button, this contextual experience that is right there on the page, is pulsating, drawing the person's attention, saying, listen, let's get started on this screen. Once again, this screen in this case is office.com, but it could be any screen, right? The person clicks on it. Here we go. So it shows one piece of content that's coming from my learning management system, in this case, a video, telling me how to get started on office.com. So I play this video, which is now, I play it, I can make it full screen if I wanted to, once I'm comfortable and maybe I like what I've seen over here, I can take the next step to go take the complete course. Before I click on this thing and show you what this would do, keep in mind that if I'm seeing this as a user, as an employee, that means that my manager also gets notified that I have seen this particular artifact, whether, once again, it could be a video, it could be a tip sheet, any other artifact, right? So my manager is notified that I've seen this thing. I have the LMS itself shows that I have gone through this particular unit. And then if I decide, I can go take the complete course as well, go into it, and takes me to the course that had that particular video or that artifact and everything else in there. I start going through it because I am interested in what I just saw and I want to go through the whole course. And once again, once I do, then I come back and continue what I was doing. But in this particular scenario, it's taking me from where I was within the flow of my work to where I could be interested in more information. Now, granted, not everybody's going to take the course. Some might say, okay, well, this is good information, I'm done, and I'll go back to working whatever we're working on. And that's fine as well. But both ways, depending on the learner's engagement, they can either take one unit of information, of learning, of either even policies or something else, consume it and move on, or go dive in further. So any questions or thoughts on this one?
This is kind of that Costco free sample method, right? It's
Well, I think the thing
here's a
that's
little
really-
taste of help.
Oh.
Right?
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Here's a little taste of the training, and then buy the whole thing in aisle 5. Click the button that takes you straight to it.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
What were you saying, Pam?
I was just going to say that I like here in this scenario where it kind of shows you where to find the training, because I think you're right. A lot of times, like, I could definitely see myself, like, I start doing something, I'm looking for more information, and I see there's training, and I put it on, like, my mental to-do list, but I don't have time to do it in that moment. So in the moment, I need to know, what do I do? What do I do to get to the next step? And then, but knowing where to find that information, like, that's, you said something earlier, Eric, and I think you called it better together, but it kind of, that merging of the help kind of on demand while you're working, and then kind of also tying that into the LMS it's interesting and I like it.
Cool.
I had some thoughts about tracking what's happening here too. Like if you're the owner of an LMS, one of the big things that you frequently care about in a system like that is the analytics, right? How much are these courses getting used and by whom? And, did they complete them by the deadlines and those sort of things with it? And what's interesting, especially for the ones that are not driven by a deadline, right? For the ones that are more self-serve, training. I think this is really helpful because you can see how much traffic you were getting in those courses before you put something like this in place. But then you could also track afterwards, did my numbers go up any? Did we see people clicking through to the course? And here in VisualSP, you get analytics too, right? So you can see how many people opened the video that was the free sample, right? How many people did that in prelude to that? So you can get an idea of how well things are working. The whole idea here is you're promoting the learning resources that you have already in your LMS, but you can track every step along the way by tracking the sample that you get here, and then also in your LMS, you can track the same place you've always been tracking.
Exactly. Yeah, and this goes along that last quote that you put up there earlier as well, right? In the deck, I forgot who was that from, so I won't guess. But bringing the learning to the learner is the same learning, but you're bringing it to them at their moment of need, where they would be interested in context of their environment. And they might not even know that it exists out there.
True. And that's one of the big challenges with an LMS. There's so much content there that people don't know the answer they're looking for is in the LMS. So great way to increase the visibility.
Any other thoughts or comments out there before I go to the next scenario?
See anything in chat? I think we're ready to go.
Okay. All right. Well, just interject and interrupt. No worries at all if you have any questions or thoughts, everybody. The next one is about, this is also, related to what you were saying earlier before about compliance training. Compliance training will still be necessary. You will need people to take, for example, the workplace harassment course or this course and that course. And if they don't take it, well, you can get in trouble as a company. So usually what I see many times is an email coming through or a Teams message coming through or some kind of a person being tapped on the shoulder saying, hey, you got to do this thing. A manager is telling the person, you have to take this thing. It's got to be done now. But still, at the end of the day, I think you just mentioned that, Eric, when you go into a learning management system, unless you know exactly what you're looking for, there's just too much. There's too much content there. You're looking for the right thing, and you have to be really handheld to know what it is that you need to do. So I have a course catalog right here. Sample one. I'll minimize this over for now. And there's a lot of stuff going on here. In fact, this does not have that many as what I usually see in a course catalog. There's too many that you see, and it's, in this case, it's not even alphabetized. So I'm looking for a course. I know my manager wants me to do it, but I don't know where it is. So I just give up and I say, I'll come back to it later. And then I never do. And then my manager's again saying, hey, you got to do this thing. So why not do it a different way? I have a email message here drafted up saying, please remember that in order for you to stay compliant with our Contosa company policy, you must take the workplace harassment course by September 26th. And then there's a contextual link right there, right? Let me just put that down for folks who are not familiar with this wording, contextual link. It's not a regular link, it's a contextual link that's actually pointing to the digital adoption platform, in this case, VisualSP. And it's going to take them, the person by the hand, take them to the right location, and have the digital adoption platform guide them towards the right course that they need to take. So let's see what happens. I click on this thing as an employee. This window opens, taking me into the right course catalog, which I was at before. A little bit slower on my network here. Here we go. So it scrolled down. Not sure if you saw that, but it scrolled down and it took me exactly to the one that I am interested, that I should be taking, the workplace harassment course. And that just happened automatically because of that contextual link. It's highlighted it, telling me exactly when it's due. I say I got it, and then I can go ahead and go into the course and view the course and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is obviously pointing to a particular course, but think very broadly as to anything you want to point out to anyone can be done with this particular type of functionality. We're of course talking about LMSs here, but anything you want to point to, and it's hard to do that remotely, you could do that with a contextual link like so.
Yeah, love it. That's kind of the welcome to Walmart method, right? People are reading them and helping them get to the right spot quickly.
Exactly.
My mind goes to the Moodle example I was experiencing recently in another organization. It's at least dozens and dozens, probably maybe even hundreds of courses that were there in the thing when I was sent for something specifically. This can really help along in the process. I've also seen it done as a banner when people arrive. Like, as an example, when I was at Visa, there was a fairly well-known URL. It was an easy URL for people to type. It was called Visa University. That's what it was called, where you could go find their stuff in it. So wasn't hard for people to get to the right place to find the LMS, but then to figure out what was I supposed to do in here. So a walkthrough like this helps. But in that kind of a scenario, a welcome banner that when people land on the home page says, "Are you here for compliance training?" And click the button to get started. It's the same kind of thing that you're doing here, just a different way to package it.
Well, coincidentally, that's the next scenario that I have, which we had not talked about. So this was not set up, guys.
Asaf and I have never met before today.
Oh boy, that's exactly what we're talking about in the next scenario. But before we go there, any other thoughts or questions or feedback? Nothing in the chat?
Nope. Looks clean.
Quiet group today. But no worries, we'll keep going. And if you have any thoughts or questions, interrupt me, please. So this is also similar to what I was talking about before, but now we're being very specific. In this case scenario being that salespeople and nobody else, salespeople in the company are not taking the required cybersecurity course in time that they have to take. Okay, and now cybersecurity, as hopefully all of you are aware, super important, especially these days. I get spammed all over the place, I feel, these days, from everywhere from email to phone calls to even text and WhatsApp messages. I don't know what's going on these days, but it is super necessary to get that, to get an understanding of how to protect yourself and your company. And cybersecurity fundamentals obviously are required for everyone to understand that deeply. Now, being very specific here about a course, about a group of people, because you could target a specific group of people in a specific application to give them a specific course with the scenario that I want to show you here. Okay, so in this case, I have a Microsoft Dynamics, well, in this case is a Power Apps acting as a Dynamics pulled up. Right, so any CRM system, we're talking about Salesforce, Dynamics, HubSpot, or whatever system, that's where salespeople live, right? And imagine the salespeople, and only the salespeople you want to target, and they come over here, they the next time they come here, they see this banner up top. Like Eric was saying, you could deliver the message through a banner. This is also happening through a digital adoption platform, in this case, VisualSP, letting them know that, hey, reminder, you have to take the cybersecurity fundamentals course before October 6th. Now, the good thing about banners, they're in your face, you can't miss them, but you can ignore them. So you could go to a different place and you could say, well, I need to do my work. I need to do what I need to do, what I came here for, and you just leave it. And when you're ready, at that point in time, when the banner is still there, you say, all right, well, I'm ready right now. Let me go ahead and take this course, get it out of the way, start course. And now, instead of just a unit of the course coming my way, the whole course is being brought to me right here. In this case, is saying that you already started it, but you didn't complete it. So please resume the course. Once again, any LMS can be brought this way. I say, yes, resume. I'm seeing the course, what is cybersecurity? So I go to this information, consume it, next. What is multi-factor authentication? Hopefully they're not going through it that fast, watching the videos and whatever else is necessary to make that happen. As they're going through it, they are getting credit. The person is getting credit for going through it, and the manager hopefully is also being notified that, okay, this person has taken the course. So you're doing all that stuff, you're consuming the information within the flow of your work directly without leaving your context within your environment, right? Because we all know context switching has a cost. In this case, we're not paying that cost. We're not switching the context. When we're done, which I won't go through the whole course here, but you're done, you click on done, or you click on the X, and then click on the X over here and the banner also, and you're done, right? So you've taken the whole course, the LMS, the whole thing came to you. You satisfied what needed to happen. The manager and the LMS itself knows who has taken the course, who has not taken the course. So being very, very specific to a requirement here. While the requirement that I talked about before was for all employees, this is for a specific group of people that you could target using a digital adoption platform like this thing, giving them the course that they need from your LMS. Comments or questions or feedback? No questions, feedback, comments? All right. Well, I hope this is all making sense.
Yeah, I was talking to a customer yesterday that was doing something similar to this. It was instead of compliance, it was a governance thing that they were doing with it. But they were doing that thing you described where you're sending out the emails to people about it, and maybe 20% of them are seeing the email to do that. You know, it's a common pain point. Just because email's so 20th century, right? But no, there's so much of it. Like you mentioned, the messages that come in, there's so much of it, things get lost. People don't see it. Do that, so it's difficult. It takes a lot of persistent effort. Anybody ever been in an organization where you get the scorecards that come out? You know, the compliance training's due in 2 weeks, and they're putting out the messages that say 10% of your department has taken the compliance training. Have you ever seen that? What's highlighted there is that it's not working. Usually is the point. It takes the managers following up on things, to get it done, because people just aren't seeing the emails.
Well, another problem to add to that pain point, and just the visibility in the emails, I have Focus set up, and then I have that other box in Outlook that sits right next to it. And so I look at my focused email, but all these reminders for training and things like that, they go right into other. And I mean, I look at them maybe once a week. So it's out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah. I'm curious what your experience is for everybody. I'm going to put another one of those little polls out. No, I thought I picked.
You did. I answered it.
Okay, there we go. I gave an extremely well and a very well. I didn't give you a medium option. Let's say that very well is the medium option, right? Yeah, that's what we see typically, is that it is the tool that we have, right? But if you have something else that people are going to see, like a banner, it just works better. You're sure people are going to get the message.
Absolutely. Well, this is right on time. Looks like we had until now for the customer roundtable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope this has been helpful to everyone out there. Comments, feedback, thoughts are welcomed even afterwards. As I was saying in the beginning, a lot of people are asking this question as to how things all fit into the blended learning aspect. If I already have an LMS, do I need a DAP? If I already have a DAP, do I need an LMS? What about the in-person trainings and webinars and everything else? How does it all fit together? And that's the question that we've been trying to answer in this session, specifically LMS and DAP, but even broader as to how all the learning technologies come together to help the learner at the end and help you accomplish your goals.
Yeah, I think the other place where a VisualSP is really helpful in LMS, and what I've seen, is that end user support. Just because there are a lot of questions that come up when people start doing training, and being able to answer those questions and kind of put them out there, send people links that are direct, because again, people, they find out that it's behind, maybe they can't find a link. Hopefully there's a banner up that says, go here to get your link, but it does reduce the amount of support tickets. And just as people ask questions, you can take those questions that you're still getting about how do I get there? How do I get started? All of, the crunch time questions that come up. And put them out there in VisualSP. I know I recently had, I switched from an employee to a consultant, and I had 7 or 8 training classes that all of a sudden I had to retake, and I had to retake them like in a very specific time frame. I didn't get the notifications, so you know, I had questions immediately because my account had changed. I couldn't get logged on anymore. Like, things were different, and where do I go to find the information? VisualSP always works. So sometimes there's obstacles just getting into the LMS. So yeah, I think the service desk, it probably is, they get a lot of questions that we haven't even thought of.
Oh, yeah.
Good point. It's always a good group to talk to when you're creating help items because they know what's happening. Right?
They know the pain points.
Yeah, not just what you think is happening. They know what's happening, right? Because
right.
they're getting the calls about it. Right? Well, given where we at in time, there are a couple of product announcements we wanted to make everybody aware of with it. So we've had a couple of recent releases that we've been communicating about through other channels that you're probably aware of, but we wanted to make sure. All right, our first one, we did a content delivery network. We implemented one of those recently, which is created noticeably better performance, measurably better performance when we're looking at it from our side. Both when we look at it from a system side and even just as users, we're in here a lot, you know, because we're focused on VisualSP. So it's it's clear to us that it's faster when we're trying to use it. The link that I put there is to our support article about that. For those of you using browser extensions, the update rolled out automatically, or it looks like it's already about 90% complete to all the users using browser extensions. The app stores do that for us from the browsers. If you deployed into SharePoint site collections, your Dynamics tenant, or you embedded a script tag into custom applications, you'll get even better results from this if you redeploy when you do that. So we would encourage you to do that. That article that's there, here there's the bit.ly link or the QR code marked A over on the side will take you straight to that article, which will help you to do that. Walks through every different deployment method we've got and what the steps would be for you to do that. The second one we wanted to mention is one that we didn't get quite as much communication on. It's a smaller impact, but it's cool, right? We're excited about that one. It's now possible for you to pick your default colors in walkthroughs. The color of the bubble itself, the color of the buttons that are used at the bottom, both the background and the text colors. Easy place for you to go do that in your subscription options. Since we're behind on time, I won't go through and demo it for you, but here's a link to the support article about it. And again, there's a QR code over here on the right to get to that article if you like. Some other good things coming. We've got a release we're very excited about for our Dynamics customers where we're offering deeper integration into Dynamics coming up. So stay tuned for that one. It's not out there yet, but we're starting to mess with it in our test environment. Some good stuff that's happening there. And also later in the year, there's going to be an update to browser extensions as well because of what's happening in the app stores, right? Google and Microsoft are making some changes at the app store level that requires some changes from us in the extensions. So that'll be coming later. Don't worry, we'll let you know in advance before there's any steps you have to do on those things. And again, what we're finding this year is that those app stores do a pretty good job of rolling out updates on their own. When we publish an update to an extension, it goes out very well, especially the Edge one. Seems like the Edge one is working even better than the Chrome one, which is interesting to know. Anything else I'm forgetting? Anything else you wanted to share, anybody?
Good from my
No,
side.
good. This is fun.
It has been. Thank you, everybody. And those of you that are watching here live and those of you that will watch this on the YouTube channel afterwards, as always, let us know how we can help. Reach out to us through support, through any of those things. When you have questions, don't forget we have office hours available every weekday at 10 o'clock Central. On our support site, there's a green button that helps you just join office hours if you're there at the right time. So remember that we are here to make it easy whenever we can. So reach out when there's something we can help with. Until then, have a good day, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.